Hi everybody, this is Kevin Trainer and welcome to my lecture that is the course review and syllabus review for the project management course that I'm teaching at the Illinois iSchool in the summer session 2017. That's course number LIS590MGO. And that's O for Oscar, not 0. So this is the first of the recordings that you're going to be listening to. And I think it's really appropriate for me to just really introduce the recordings that you're going to be listening to. Let's take a peek at the schedule, okay? So if I bring my browser to the front here, you can see that the lectures that I have, what we're looking at is our weekly schedule, which is a web app that I built. And you should be able to look at any particular day and see what's due that day, okay? And for the first week, you can see that one of the things that is due is that you have watched the recording of the lecture that you're listening to right now, okay? And then we go a couple of weeks where I don't think we have any recordings. So we don't have any in week 2. But starting in week 3, we have quite a few. So in week 3, we're covering 3 chapters of the Schwalbe textbook, so there are 3 videos there. In week 4, we're again covering 3 chapters of the Schwalbe textbook, 3 videos there. In week 5, 2 chapters of the Schwalbe textbook, but I've got a side lecture on activity diagramming. That's a pretty short one. And week 6, 3 more chapters, 3 more recorded video lectures. And then in the week 7, we have 11 and 12. And in case you didn't already pay attention and see the detail, we've already done 13 between 4 and 5, so that's all taken care of there. In addition, most of the assignments you have to hand in typically have a, well, not all of them, but some of them will have a tutorial video associated with them. Actually, I'm not seeing that here, so maybe we're not doing that in this course. So I take that back. So that's probably all the videos. Now, a couple things about listening to and watching the videos. First of all, you've been listening long enough to probably realize that I don't speak real fast. Now, this has to do with my speech problems and the modification techniques that I use. And it turns out that this nice, easy pace is what works for me in terms of being as fluent as I'm going to be. So this is a great pace for me to record at. A lot of people, including me, think that this is a slow pace to listen at. Okay? So, how do you deal with that? Well, you can listen to it faster. So if you go down to the lower right corner of your browser on YouTube, and you there should be a little gear icon for the settings. And one of the settings that you want to pick high resolution. You want to pick HD because you want to be able to see the recording well. But the other one is you can play it fast. And depending upon the material, I like it best between 1.25 and 1.5. Now, some people can listen really fast. So maybe even higher would work for you. A 2 is too fast for me. But once I start to listen at 1.25, quite frankly, I don't like to go back to 1. So please know that ability's there. With a little bit of getting used to it, it doesn't even sound like you're playing it fast. All right? So you're certainly welcome to do that. The other thing is that I've put these all up as required lectures, but this is a graduate course, okay? And I'm certainly expecting everybody to listen to and watch this one, this introductory one. This allows us to not burn up a lot of class time on it. But the rest of the lectures are really up to you. Students historically have liked them a lot, okay? There's a lot of information here. Some people like to get their information in 2 ways in order to learn it. There's a lot of detail associated with the Schwalbe book, which is the book that I've done the lectures on. Nevertheless, this is a graduate course, and it's not required that we both do the readings and have me lecture. So you decide, okay? What you need to be able to do is you need to be able to get this information for your skills in later life and to be able to pass the exam at the end of the course. But I'm not going to dictate that you have to listen to every minute of every lecture. I'm going to leave that to your discretion. Okay? Good, that's that. Okay, as long as we're on the weekly schedule, let's stay there, right? So the weekly schedule, I've given you links to it, but the weekly schedule has an index, and we're doing an 8-week course, which is pretty darn fast. This is as short as they get in the summer. There may be some kind of a shorter interim course somewhere, but this is pretty short. And the way that you use the index page is that the week number is a link to the weekly schedule page for that week. And as you can see, as I hover over it, it changes color. Now, my interaction design students think that maybe that wasn't the best choice for me, and maybe someday I'll change that, but it's not real high on my list right now. So we're just about to start week 1 tomorrow, okay? And here we are. Let's kind of look through this. In week 1, we are starting up the course. We're starting to work on team formation. I'm going to have you working on team-based projects. I can see that you all have been able to dive into it on the Moodle already, so this isn't really going to be news. But each team is going to create a web-based information site for the use of new project management practitioners in their field of interest. And our motivation for doing this is the following. Students are sometimes surprised to find out that project management training and education is pretty general. Also, the project management materials that we use in the course are pretty information technology centric. Now that makes sense for 2 or 3 reasons. One is that we are an information school. Okay. 2, information technology projects have really something in common with all kind of information-like projects. So even information-driven projects that are not information technology projects have a lot of the same special circumstances. Nevertheless, people in my class are always interested in what special information, in addition to the general information, what special information do I need to know, do I have would I like to have access to in order to be effective as a new practitioner, as a project manager in public libraries, research data centers, corporate analytics groups, all those things. So I have you forming up into teams to work on those information sites. And while we do that, we're going to learn a fairly new-ish approach to project management called Agile Project Management. And we're going to be learning that real quick in the first 2 weeks of the course. And then we're going to have you use it in the last 6 weeks of the course. And this is a little fast. I mean, I've done this with other classes in about twice the amount of time. So we have learned it over 4 weeks, right? And then we have implemented over 10 or 11 weeks. Okay, so it's very doable. It's the standard summertime, twice the pace, and I think that you ought to be able to do it. So in week 1 here, we're going over the readings for Agile Project Management, which are in the latent text. And you can see in week 1, we're going to be discussing chapters 1 through 6. And there's a lot of information here. This is a pretty light book. It's a For Dummies book, and I apologize for that. But this a particular author has a couple of related books in the For Dummies series, and he probably has the most practically oriented and accessible books on the subject, and they're very, very popular, and also they're very affordable. And they're just the right kind of weight for the amount that we need to know before we dive in. So on these, there's not going to be a lecture recording. The chapters are short. We're just going to discuss the material. I typically have a copy of the ebook up, and I kind of page through it, and I think of what I think the major issues are that I want to discuss. And as we're going through, typically the students do the same, and it tends to work pretty well without formal lectures. Okay, so that's what we're doing in week 1. All right. Also, you're going to introduce yourself and start with the team formation forum. Then as we move into week 2, we're going to finish the readings that are in the latent book on Agile Project Management. And we're only going up through chapter 11. We will take a look at some of the later chapters before we're done. I'm not sure I formally have them on the reading list yet, but through chapter 11 is really just enough to do what you're doing for the project that you're going to do. And then what we're going to do is, starting week 3, is we're going to kick back and start thinking great thoughts about project management more generally. Okay, so week 2 is also week 2 of 2 of this team formation. So by the end of week 2, you should have a team. You should know what your particular interest area is. And we're doing that primarily in the forum, but of course we don't have to do everything electronically. We can talk to each other. We'll have had 2 classes during that time. Okay, let's go on to the next week in the schedule. So the next week in the schedule is where we begin to go through the Kathy Schwalbe book on project management. And this is project management. I would say it's traditional project management in contrast to agile project management. But that would be to sell it short, because the Schwalbe book is really based on a body of knowledge that's been developed by and promoted by an organization called PMI, Project Management Institute. And whereas PMI was kind of standoffish in terms of adopting agile project management in the early days of agile, they've really fully embraced it now. And so as we go through the Schwalbe book, what we're going to find is this is a much deeper treatment of PM. That's what we call project management, PM. It's a much deeper treatment, and it includes, at least in the early chapters, a pretty good discussion of the balance between traditional approaches and agile approaches. Now, I'm going to tell you that the kind of project that I have you doing with agile is, I think, super well suited to agile. And I think that I think everybody would agree. The agile folks are a bit self-important. Okay, so they think that all projects are suited to agile, and nothing's really suited to the traditional alternatives to agile. People from the PMI school, of which Kathy Schwalbe is an excellent representative, they would say, no, it's, you pick the approach that's right for the situation, and yeah, this kind of project that you're doing here, it's perfect for agile. So that's why we picked that, and that's why we're doing it. So we're going to cover 3 chapters of the Schwalbe book in week 3. Starting in that week, you'll be working on your projects. Okay? And let's see, we got a couple of other things that are happening. First of all, there's an exam on the latent text. It's kind of a midterm, kind of an early midterm. Okay? It's got about 40 questions. It's going to be open book, open notes, open internet. You get all the attempts that you want. We take the highest score. You ought to be able to do very well. That should be open for a week. Okay? It uses the Moodle quiz feature. The other thing is that since we're starting our projects in week 3, you guys have to begin to meet as a team. And as you'll see in your readings about Agile teams are, at least in theory, supposed to be co-located. They're all supposed to work in the same room. Well, unfortunately, we can't do that. And I have classes that can't do that all the time, right? And what we typically do in the courses I teach with this approach is that we say that teams should meet and have their daily scrum, which is something we're going to learn about, at least twice a week. Normally, you would do that maybe 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Okay? I'm going to expect you to be able to have one of the meetings during our live session time. And I'm going to expect you to have the other one on your own. Can you have 3 or 4? Sure you could. I've had teams do 3 or 4. I've had teams have a little meeting every day of the week, although I'm not sure that was the best idea. But 2 should do fine as a guide, and they only take a quarter of an hour, so it's not a big time commitment. Okay, so these are going to start in week 3. Also, I want to point out here that we have these practice quizzes. Okay, well, what are they? Well, the Schwalbe book, there's going to be a final exam on the Schwalbe book, 100 questions. And a lot of the stuff from the PMI world is pretty jargony. And some of the concepts have, what comes down to, again, they've got fairly vague names. Okay? Now, the names are good because PMI, I think, has done a great job of promoting a common language for project management across industries. That's the good news. The bad news is it's a fairly awkward, jargony, kind of vague language. So it's hard to get sharp on it, you know? So instead of waiting for the exam to come around and wonder how you're going to do on it, what I've done is I've created a, I haven't posted them up yet, but I just have to copy them from a former prior semester. I've created a practice quiz for each of the chapters that we cover that week. And it's up to you whether you want to use them or not. The mechanics of it are going to work. They're going to use the Moodle quiz feature. The mechanics are going to be a lot like the exams. Okay, so nice place to practice. And you'll get a grade, so you see how you're doing. The grade doesn't count towards your course grade. But it ought to give, a lot of people just like to take them because they want to be good at it when it comes time to take the exam in the end. Again, this is a fairly optional course element. All right. So we've got that going by week 3. Let's see what happens. Now, something I haven't talked about before, and this is a good time to talk about it now, is that every week on Tuesday evening, I'm going to have a session that's going to serve as online office hours and lab session. So what do we do there? Well, it's a chance to drop by with really any question that you have. Now, it could be a question about the material that you would like to ask outside of class time. It could be a question about the project and the requirements for the project. It could be a question about managing the project, right? You start to manage these things and you come up against some kind of snag, and then you say to yourself, how do people deal with this? Let's go talk to Kevin about that. Okay? Or it could also be some kind of a technical thing. I've recommended that you guys create this information site using WordPress, and in particular the hosting of WordPress through the University of Illinois, this capability called PIE or Pi. And I've only used Pi a little bit, but certainly we might have some technical questions. Okay, so lots of possibilities there. It's an optional session. Sometimes people come by just to see what's on everybody else's mind. All right, and that'll be on Tuesdays from 7:30 to 8:30. We don't have one scheduled for the week of the 4th of July. I'm going to ask you guys if we want to, because that's a holiday at the university. But I'm going to ask you guys if we need to have a replacement one that week. And if you want one, we'll have one some other day. And if you don't, we won't. Okay. Week 4. This is the holiday week, so we're going to figure out whether or not we're going to schedule a replacement online office hours lab session. We're covering chapters 4, 13, and 5 in the Schwalbe book. 13's out of order because it was kind of put into the book out of order. Stakeholder management is a really kind of early consideration in a project. It's certainly you want to get it right at the very beginning. And so to wait until the end of the book to talk about it is kind of misplaced. So I typically do it between chapters 4 and 5, and there it is. Again, we're going to have the team meetings, right? I just want to come back here. I want to work back. When I talked about week 3, I said that you were already going to be doing your project. And what you're going to be doing during that week, the Agile approach is not real heavy on planning. It's more doing oriented. That said, there is planning, okay? And the planning has a couple of deliverables, okay? So I expect your group to be working on your planning during week 3. And we've got the meetings in there for that. In week 4, I have to click on next. In week 4, we're going to begin the first of these iterations of working on project deliverables. We call them sprints. And I originally, if you had looked at the schedule I had up a couple days ago, I thought that we would have two-week sprints. And now I've realized that that's just not enough to get a hang of the method. And I've got you now doing 4 one-week sprints. So this week 4 is sprint 1. Okay. Also, this is the week where you're going to hand in your deliverables from the planning. And there are two coordinated documents. They're called Product Vision Statement and Product Roadmap. And I'll be publishing more detailed requirements for each of those. But there's a pretty good, what I typically say is I want people to write them up consistent with the way that they're described in the Layton book. So when you find the discussion of them in the Layton book, which, if I had to guess, was in chapter 7. Well, I'm not going to be adding a lot of information to that when I put the instructions together, but I will put some instructions together. So here, for a lot of weeks, we're just going to be cruising along at the same speed. We're going to be doing 2 things at the same time. Working on the project, learning about traditional project management, or more comprehensive, deep view of project management from the latent text, and constantly comparing it to what we learned from the Layton book, and also what our experiences is on this project that we're doing. That's the second big thing. We're doing the project. Now, the project, as I've described in several places, I really want this to have a content and information focus. I do want you to be able to put it together in a thoughtful way with WordPress. But this is not a web design course, nor is it really an advanced content management course. Okay? To the extent that you're good at web design and content management and you want to use some features to meet some requirements, that's great. But this is really a content-centric exercise. Okay. So for weeks 4, 5, 6, and 7, we're going to be doing sprints. And chapters from the Schwalbe book, and a peek back at the Layton book for how traditional compares to Agile. Okay? Then, so that's 4 is the first week we're doing that, sprint 1. In 5, we're in sprint 2. Okay? Same kind of week. In 6, we're in sprint 3. And 7, we're in sprint 4. Now, this is the last of the development-oriented sprints that we have. And then in the last week, 8, we're going to be doing a couple of things. One is that we're just going to be tying things up. We'll have finished all of the readings and all of the discussions of the readings. It's only going to be any kind of integrated further discussion that we're going to have. We're going to have a final sprint that's called a release sprint, and this is where teams they tidy up their work. We're going to learn at the end of each sprint, your work product should be shippable. Okay, which means it's really, the subset that you have done is real. Okay, and it's not fake or preliminary or something like that. In the release sprint, we clean it up. We make sure everything's integrated together. We make sure that we're ready to turn this thing on, and people can come to visit it, and it's a complete integrated finished product whole. Okay. So that's what we do during the release sprint week. Also, project deliverables are due. Okay, and I'll talk about them, but I also want to mention there's an exam on the Schwalbe text, the final exam, that really opens a week before. Okay, so this really opens on July 23rd, which is the beginning of week 7. So during week 7 and 8, you can work on this exam on the Schwalbe text. Okay. But it's due. It's going to close at the end of the day on Wednesday, August the 2nd. Okay. Now, what about the deliverables? Well, the deliverables are going to be 4 in total. The delivered site, the site demo video, the project report, and peer evaluations. Okay. Now, the delivered site is just the site itself. Okay. All you're really handing in is a PDF with the URL and your team name, so that I can go find it. Well, how am I going to find out about it? Well, I am going to exercises, but I also, what I typically do for these kinds of projects is I have the team do a demo video. In which case they can kind of walk the viewer through the site and also talk about some of the experience and how some of the decisions were made and that kind of stuff. That's limited to a half hour. It could be shorter. Okay. Typically, I limit teams to a half hour when they've been working on their project for in a 16-week semester. Well, we're working in half the time, and I know we're working hard, but we're not, we're not going to have as big a deliverable site, as big a delivered site as a 16-week team's going to get. It's just the nature of the beast. So, is it possible you won't use up a half hour? Yeah, I think it is. It could be considerably shorter. A project report is going to be a report on the experience of the team in using Agile project management to do the project. And I've got a series of sections that I want you to address. I have a whole kind of outline for it. I need to revise it to make it completely appropriate for the length of the semester and the kind of projects we've chosen. But I think I said I'm going to have that by June 14th, which is our first class. Now, so I'm going to have instructions and a grading rubric for each of these three main deliverables. Notice that each of them say one per team. Okay, so these are team deliverables. The only individual deliverable is peer evaluations. I think this is the first time I've done a team project here at Illinois. I always do individual projects with team collaboration sessions. But these peer evaluations are something that we use all the time up at the iSchool in Milwaukee as a way for people to give honest feedback about whether everybody on the team actually kicked in. Now, some of the people I teach this stuff to are undergraduates, and so the probability that somebody's going to disappear in the undergraduate world compared to the graduate world is considerably higher, right? So I would expect these to be all good news, right? And when you look through the instructions for these and you look through the sample things, you can see that we're not looking for a beauty contest. We're just looking for an honest check on, did everybody do a fair share? Okay. And how do we find out? Well, I just have to ask you guys and find out. Okay. So it's pretty straightforward stuff. I've probably done it for about 12 classes, and I've got the system down pretty well. Okay, so that's it. That's the end. Now, the last week during class, I'm not exactly sure what we're doing. Okay, we're not going to take this, and I'm not going to have you record your demo and then have you do a demo presentation too. But I'm sure there's going to be plenty to do. Okay. Maybe there'll be just a short report for each team where they show us where the demo is and what we did. I haven't worked out the details of that, but I've left this last week kind of uncluttered in terms of the activities for the actual live session, and I think it's going to fill up. Okay, that's my guess. All right, that's the schedule. So this is a really busy 16-week course in 8 weeks, right? So hang on, get ready to work hard, get ready to have fun. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. What else do I want to do? Well, I want to talk about the syllabus. Just see if there's anything on here that we didn't talk about when going through the schedule. Let's see. The title of the course, Project Management. This course used to be called Project Management for LIS. And we reshaped the course back in the spring to take LIS out of it such that we wanted it to be pretty clear that everybody who's included in the iSchool, and really anybody else who wants to come to take the course, they're going to learn the common aspects of project management. And this is an opportunity to explore what might be special about practices in project management in their professional areas of interest. Okay? So that doesn't only include libraries and archives and, say, data curation. Okay? and digital inclusion. Okay, which are, say, the primary practice areas of the iSchool historically. It also includes all the potential practice areas of the new MSIM program. So what are those people going to be doing? Well, we're going to discover what those people are going to be doing. I mean, they're going to be working at, some of them are going to be working in research centers, so perhaps in science, perhaps in humanities, perhaps people are going to be working in analytics in the business world. Some of those analytics are going to be pretty different from each other. Some people are going to go into pharma, some people are going to go into retail. Some people are going to go into working for places like Google and Yahoo and Wolfram. Okay, so it's a little bit hard to predict what the special circumstances are of the interest of all these people, which is why we're focusing on the project that we are. Okay, so the course description used to say a lot about libraries, archives, that kind of stuff. It's entirely possible that when I recorded the lectures last summer, I may say a thing or two of that ilk. Okay? Keep in mind that everybody's welcome in this course, and our whole focus is multi-professional. I mean, we're all about that. So don't let some old title on some document or some a comment that I made in one of the recordings from last summer. Don't let them throw you off the scent. We are serious about this. Okay. The two books, the Layton book, Agile Project Management for Dummies. Again, I apologize for the dummies, but I think it's the most appropriate book for us. The paperback is pretty affordable. I have both. I have a paperback copy, I have an EPUB copy, and I have a PDF copy. And I use each of them for different things. So they're all good. Make sure you have a copy to keep. It's not an expensive buy. The Schwalbe book, the 8th edition, there is a 7th edition revised that's pretty close to the 8th. If in fact you had it and you twisted my arm and said, well, would I get by with this? I'd probably say, well, some things have changed, but you might. But if you can get the 8th edition, get the 8th edition. The Kathy Schwalbe's a highly regarded author in this area. She just happens to be a great person. I'm tangentially acquainted with her professionally. I've contacted her several times about the use of her several books, and she's always been helpful. The book is expensive. I apologize for that, but that's just the way good big textbooks are, and I can't control that. I apologize for it though. The course topics that you see here came right off the schedule. So these are the titles of the chapters that we're reading each week. The course objectives, let's just look at those. I think I've talked about all of them, but I expect you to understand the nature of projects and project management. We're certainly going to get that from our work on Schwalbe. Understand the differences in approach between Agile and traditional approaches. We'll talk about that till you're sick of it. Okay. Understanding the special requirements of managing a project in the information field. So, I mean, that's what we really want to explore. We have a lot of really concrete stuff from the textbook on how IT projects are maybe different from just kind of random projects in general, construction projects, those kinds of things. So we've got a pretty good discussion of that. And I do have a bunch of articles that I'm going to put up for you guys to have access to as potential resources for your information sites. The articles that I used to have people read, and there's a lot of information there related to this. This is when we weren't doing the project. But that's a focus. We're going to explore how our projects, given the fact that we think that a general approach to PM generally works, what are the special parts that we ought to be thinking about for us? The next two things, the 5 project management process groups and the 10 project management knowledge areas. These are 2 taxonomies that are used by PMI in order to organize their body of knowledge about project management. And our Schwabe textbook is really organized around those 2 taxonomies. And of course, the last one, organize and conduct a small project using, I think it originally said an actual project. And I thought, well, I ought to make sure it's small. So an actual small project using Agile PM. I want you to do the readings ahead of time. The classes themselves, the live sessions, are going to be pretty discussion oriented. There's not going to be any lecture in the live sessions. So one of the implications of that is please get a headset and get used to using it. And also, if you haven't had a chance to do things like present slides with the whiteboard, or something we use in a lot of my classes is this application sharing, where somebody's got some notes or some slides or whatever, and they want to show us what they have. They need to application share, and I'm forever coaching students through how to get application sharing on. The ITD group at the iSchool, I guess in the persona of the help desk, they run these how to use Blackboard Collaborate sessions. And if you're not super good at this, look on Moodle and you see when they're going to have the sessions. Or you can even, if it's not a busy day, you can call up the help desk and say you just want somebody to practice with you, and if they have some time, they will. The exams I already talked about. The practice quizzes I already talked about. The team project I already talked about, and we're going to be getting more details on that. And the grades. Let's talk about the grades. The exams are going to be 40% of the grade. The project deliverables, the 3 group ones, the delivered site, the demo video, and the project report, those 3 are going to count towards 50% of the grade, provided that everybody makes a fair contribution. Then everybody on the team is going to get the same grade for those. Okay? If in fact somebody disappears, then there'll be some discounting. Class and group contribution will be a combination of the contribution during live sessions, people chatting, people talking on their microphones, all those things, plus the posting to forums, plus the group contribution that is going to come from those peer evaluations. Okay, so class and group contribution 10%, project deliverables 50%, exams 40%. And then the translation of letter grades, number grades to letter grades, I got this from a colleague when I came here 10 years ago, and I've never changed it. So I think pretty much we all use the same thing. But you might want to look at it. And then we've got a couple of sections down here, one on academic integrity, one on statement of inclusion, one on accessibility. These are going to boilerplate, but they're all like really important things. I mean, you know, we want everybody to do their own work, and we have certain expectations on that. We want this to be a safe learning and interaction space. So we want to treat each other with the respect and the dignity that we all deserve. For people who have any kind of different needs, say related to accessibility, that we want everybody to have a full opportunity to participate. So if you haven't reviewed these, please do. And also, they're pretty important stuff, so that if you have a question about them, or if you need some help in any of these areas, or you know, you have a problem or a complaint, please come to me and I'll help. So that's it. So let's just go back and wrap up. Okay. This is a 16-week course in 8 weeks, and we're going to be going fast. We're doing it a little differently than we've ever done it before in the summertime here at the Illinois iSchool. I used to, for instance, not do a project. I had people do a paper. People have started to tell me that they want to do projects and not papers. And the other project management classes that I've been doing all have projects. And I told that to people, and a couple of people got back to me and said, well, then I think we ought to do projects too. So now I go, what the heck, let's do project. So we have a lot in here, okay? And I think I have it all shoehorned in here the right way. It's in an accelerated semester. Feel free to give me feedback about things that are either in the wrong place or even accelerated beyond the normal summertime hyper acceleration. And fine, you know, we'll do what we can to get through. But I think this is going to be a lot of fun. It's definitely going to take a lot of attention and hard work. And I always enjoy the products I get from the students at the end of this course, and these information sites I am particularly eager to get my hands on. So I'm excited. So that's it for me. I'm looking forward to seeing you on the first evening of class on the 14th. Until then, I'll say bye-bye. Bye-bye.